Hello everyone and welcome back to another battle report from Marvel Crisis Protocol. Here's Sora's cameo. Sora. He's fine. Anyway, we're going to see today the Asgardians taking on the Guardians of the Galaxy with Drax and Ronan thrown in, although we'll take a look at the full team in a second. Board's already set up with objectives. We'll cover the objective markers as well in a moment. Please do remember to show your support if you want to see more Crisis Protocol in the future, and subscribe as well. With all that said, you know the usual gibbons you've got to say on YouTube. Let's get stuck into the teams. So here are the Guardians of the Galaxy 17 threat being played today. Guardians affiliation, obviously, we have Star-Lord leading them in the middle there. As said, we have Drax and Ronan, the new additions. And then filling out the rest of the team, we have Rocket, we have Groot, and we have Nebula at the back there for the cheap 2 points. Again, remember, she cannot contest or hold objectives. And there are team tactics cards: Crew of the Milano, No Matter the Cost, Unearthly Rage, We Are Groot, and Deadly Duo. And just 4 models in the Asgardian team. We have Thor, we have Valkyrie, we have Loki. Loki has the Mind Infinity Stone, and we have Hela. So again, as said, that's on Loki, so he can force people to move towards him if he's willing to spend the power. Team tactics cards: Odin's Blessing, Brace for Impact, Advanced R&D, Field Dressing, and one of the other new ones, Heavy Firepower. So as already stated, 17 threat being played today with Riot Sparks over Extremist 3.0, so that's the 4 Extremist consoles. They just look like mobile phones to me. And Struggle for the Cube, so the cube fragments, you can hold as many as you like, they generate more power for you, but at the end of the turn they also hurt you. So the 4 consoles, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5 cube shards, 1, 2, right smack dab in the middle for 3, there's 4, and there's 5. I guess maybe they've been unearthing them, that's the kind of theme we're going for here. So we still need to work out who's going on what side of the table, who's going first, so we'll be back at deployment. So we're set up and ready to go. The Guardians of the Galaxy will be the ones going first in Battle Round 1. They are deployed on your right as you see the table currently. Basically in a line, Rocket and Groot next to each other, obviously Nebula just kind of in the middle with Drax, and then Star-Lord and Ronan over there. And then over here are the Asgardians. We have Valkyrie aiming for that cube fragment, obviously, Thor and Loki in the middle, and Hela all the way over there. Now the other thing to mention, when the unboxing on Drax and Ronan was done, we saw that Ronan does the Judgment stats effect, which it doesn't classify. You have to go to the digital PDF to find that. What Judgment means is if it is put upon an enemy, that enemy is not allowed to gain power from taking damage, which is pretty potent. That's like a very hard counter to someone like the Hulk, for instance. Obviously the Hulk isn't here, but just in general, that's what that stats effect does. It's pretty nasty, and could still make a difference to the Asgardians, who obviously do like generating a lot of power. They get 1 extra, or Loki gets 2 because he has an Infinity Stone. So that's what that does, and then we'll worry about Drax causing vengeance once that procs as well. So anyway, with that, let's get started. So we're going to cover first activations for both sides, because we're playing 2 missions here that just mean that the first turn is basically going to be non-stop just positioning, and turn 2 is where it all kicks off. If anything, honestly, I feel like that's one of the things about Crisis Protocol, is that the first turn of most matches is just that, and there's not really any getting away from that, because you want to, you know, secure objectives, secure points. So what can you do? But either way, Groot activated, did a double small move, picked up the cube fragment behind him for 1 power, so that is now on his person. He'll get 1 power but also 1 damage at the end of the turn. He is not close enough because of his short movement to be claiming that Extremist console. And then Thor, he flew forwards medium and a half, more so, for both his actions, picked up the cube fragment that was in the middle of the debris there for his 1 of his 2 power, and that's his turn as well, so we're back over to the Guardians. Star-Lord was next up. He moved medium right onto this Extremist console and was just barely, he's actually standing on the console, just barely within 4 to shoot at Thor with his element guns, which he did, but Thor's defense was too much to get through, so that's it for his turn. And next up was Hela. She did a medium move to roughly there. She spent 1 of her 2 power to pick up the fragment that was there, and then did another move to secure the Extremist console on that side there. Nothing to attack or in range or anything like that. So it's over to the Guardians again. 2 more shuffling activations, 1 for each side. Rocket Raccoon did a double medium move, basically copying Hela, except there was no cube fragment because Groot has already taken it, just to secure this Extremist console here. And then Loki, without much choice, has to secure that Extremis console, so just did a move and a bit to be securing the backline Extremis console there. So that does just leave Valkyrie for the Asgardians, but the Guardians, that's annoying, still have Nebula, Drax, and Ronan. So obviously the Asgardians are going to run. Well, they can always pass, I suppose, but still. Back over to the Guardians again. Two more activations down, starting with Ronan. He did a medium move and then picked up the cube fragment that was on the far side of that bit of debris there. Then he clambered over it for a second move so that he is contesting this Extremis console. He wasn't able to attack because he did a double move. And then over to Valkyrie, she essentially did the exact same thing to get over to this Extremis console after picking up the cube fragment that was in front of her, so that she's contesting the Extremis console that Rocket is holding. So that's Guardians, turn 1 is done. Now Nebula and Drax get to do whatever they want to take us to the cleanup. And so the last two activations, Drax did a double move to go into the centre of the map where Thor is, and obviously did nothing else beyond that. Nebula moved long and then moved long to roughly end up where you can see her. Again, she does not contest objectives, so it doesn't matter that she's not quite in range 1 of that Extremis because it doesn't do anything. So now is when enter the cleanup and kind of move into Battle Round 2. Everybody who does hold a cube is obviously going to be scoring, that we'll cover in a second, but they also take 1 damage and gain 1 power. So as things stand at the end of Battle Round 1, it will be the Guardians, it will be the Asgardians going first in the second Battle Round. And as far as victory points go, the Asgardians have 3 cosmic cube fragments, the Guardians of the Galaxy have 2, and then objective wise, Loki holds this one is contested, Star-Lord holds that one, this one is contested. So because they have 1 more cube fragment, Asgardians pull ahead just by a single victory point as we move into Battle Round 2, where things are going to get messy. So to get Battle Round 2 started, Valkyrie activated once a oopsie was noticed. The oopsie in question is this: Groot is not within 1 of Rocket, so he can't do his automatic bodyguard if he gets attacked. That was an error in placement, so Valkyrie decided to capitalise on that by spending 3 power on Dragon Fang. Didn't do that great with it, despite Rocket only having 2 defense dice. She only did 2 damage, but she did get the wild, which then means you can do a free strike because of Flurry. That did 1 damage. Rocket only has 3 health on his undazed side, so he is dazed, or unwounded I guess. And then for her second action, for a superpower, she spent 2 because she generated 1 from the strike, and she had 1 left over, to pick up the dumpster, chuck it at Nebula, who did not do particularly well with her dodge roll, and took 2 damage from it. Now upon saying all that out loud, forgot that the strike was part of the flurry on Dragon Fang, and the throw is obviously a superpower, so she technically has another action, but she's not in range to do any attack, because Nebula, you know what, Nebula is within 2, so never mind, hang on a second. Okay, never mind, she tried to do another strike on Nebula and whiffed entirely with nothing but blanks and skulls, so it literally changes nothing. Over to the Guardians for their first activation. So Star-Lord activated, and first of all he fired his element guns at Thor. The hope was that they would do at least 1 damage, so that then he could go full auto with them and put some stats effects on him. That did not work out, it missed his first attack, so he had to do another one. That did a lot better, and actually did manage to get 3 damage through to Thor, but there is nothing else he can do, so he's still just staying on that Extremis console. So you'll notice that the middle of the table has become a bit more empty. That's because Thor took his turn. First of all, he did a superpower. He did Strongest Avenger to pick up Drax and throw him at Star-Lord. So Drax just takes 1 damage for the collision. Star-Lord didn't do too well with his dodge roll and took 2 damage. Then for his actual actions, he did a move to where you can see him within range of his brother. And then he threw his hammer at Nebula, but also used heavy firepower, which is you spend 2, the next attack made by this character that targets an enemy character that's not within 3, it's just barely out of 4 and within 5, adds 2 to the attack roll. So it turned hammer throw from a 5 to a 7 physical dice attack, which you'd think would be enough to kill a character with 2 HP left. Whiffed, only did 2 damage, of which Nebula blocked 1, so she took 1 plus the shock condition. But then, because Thor is within 2 of the Extremis console, he spent 1 power to interact with it to heal 1 damage, because that is a thing that finally got remembered. So just to quickly mention, totally forgot, because Drax's Vengeance is passive, if he is attacked by someone he can put his Vengeance marker on them, You can only have one vengeance marker in play, however, but it's on Thor because Thor threw him and did damage, so presumably that counts. The vengeance marker just means he rolls, I think it's 3 additional dice if he attacks the target of his vengeance. So that's pretty nasty if indeed it pays off. So anyway, it wasn't Drax who went, it was Ronan the Accuser, who stayed where he was. He did a basic strike with his hammer for his first attack on Hela. It whiffed pretty badly. Then he did a element attack with it. It's called, what is it called? Universal Weapon, I think. It turns to energy from physical, and he got only 1 hit, but it was a wild which let him shove her, and despite only being 1 hit, it actually did get through for 1 damage, and as long as it deals damage, it also does the shock condition. Forgot to mention earlier, while we're covering things, missed obviously when Rocket Raccoon got dazed, Hela gained 1 lost soul. And with that, it is over to the not the Guardians, the Asgardians for their next activation, unless they pass. So it was a very interesting turn for Hela, and there's a lot to cover here. So Hela was pushed back, so for her first action she moved back into range of the Extremist console, that is. Then she did Reign of Hell on poor old Ronan there. Did massively well despite not losing 1 power die for being shocked. She did 3 crits in the initial roll, which added up to a ridiculous amount of damage. Ronan did not do that well with his defense rolls and took 5 damage as a result. Combined with the 1 damage he took from having a cube fragment meant that he is dazed. Now however, that does trigger his The Accuser roll, which is a free superpower, which is reactive to him being dazed or KO'd. He can do a free attack, well, he gets a free move if he wants to, a short move, and then he does an attack against whoever dazed him or KO'd him or removed him from the table. And he did another universal hammer attack on Hela, rolled extremely well, and did 3 damage to her. Now that puts her, with the damage on her, puts her at 5 out of 6 health, so she's 1 away, so the cube fragment she's already holding is going to kill her when that happens. Ronan had a cube fragment which he's dropped. Hela spent 1 power to pick it up, so she's now holding 2, guaranteeing that she's going to daze. However, the cube fragments work that at the end of the turn you score for the cube fragments, and then in the power phase it damages you. So in the power phase of the next turn she's automatically dazed and is dropping 2 fragments, but she's taking them now because she's scoring 3 this turn. 2 fragments plus the Extremist console. So that's a little complicated. It's guaranteeing she's dropping those fragments, and that Ronan will probably be able to pick them up. But yes, so just so we're clear, that's how the cube fragments work. They damage you in the power phase, but they score in the cleanup phase. So the score happens before the damage that kills her, or dazes her. So anyway, if that's all made clear, back over to the Guardians. So Nebula activated next, and she had a pretty good turn. Also, she heals 1 damage just for activating because of her cybernetic enhancements. She did a Shock Baton Assault, I think it's called, her best attack, which means that she can move within 1 of her target after doing it. She attacked Valkyrie, obviously with 1 less attack die because she was shocked. Didn't care, only did 2 damage with the initial attack, but then she just did a basic strike and rolled ridiculously well. Oh, also because Valkyrie is trying to claim an objective and had a cube fragment, she could re-roll failed attacks. Did 3 plus damage on her that actually did daze her. Now Nebula can't contest this and can't pick up the cube fragment, so the cube fragment is just dropped, although obviously Groot is just going to be able to pick it up. But she had a great turn, and now it's just over to Loki to end the turn for the Asgardians. So because Loki is the only one of the brothers there that is within 1 of the Extremist console, he couldn't really move. So instead he interacted with the Extremist console to heal 1 more damage on his brother. So Thor has healed another health. It doesn't say you have to use it on yourself, it just says non-dazed character within 2. You could even use it on an enemy apparently if you wanted to. Then, for lack of anything better to do, he used advanced R&D, where you can spend up to 5 power and you can distribute 1 power to allies. He spent 3 and gave 1 power to Thor, Hela and Valkyrie. And that is it. He didn't do anything with his other action. There's nothing to do. So it's over to Drax and Groot to end Battle Round 2. So for the last 2 activations, Drax interacted with the Extremist console to heal 1 damage on Quill and then just did a double medium move forwards. He is charging right on in there. He is not close enough to contest the Extremist console, but he's obviously wanting to scrap with the 2 brothers there. Groot picked up the shard that was on the floor, dropped by Valkyrie when she got dazed. Then he did a move so that he is holding that, because Nebula doesn't count, so now he's the only one holding that currently. And there was nothing else for him to do over there, and can't reach anyone else. So that was it. He didn't have enough power to do We Are Groot. Oh no, sorry, no, he interacted with the console to heal Nebula for 1. So that does take us to the end of the round, counting up the points. And remember, as we roll into the 3rd turn, Hela immediately drops 2 shards and gets dazed, but they score first. So as things stand, Groot had 2 cube fragments for the Guardians of the Galaxy. Hela had 2 cube fragments and Thor had 1, so 3 playing 2. And also Hela did hold that Extremis console, but again, as it rolls over, it now no longer is held by her. Loki held this one, Groot held this one, and Star-Lord held that one. So the Asgardians did pull ahead slightly. They're at 9, playing 7. And as we go into battle round 3, it will be the Asgardians going first. However, Hela has instantly dazed, dropped the two cube fragments, and is obviously no longer holding and will not get a turn. So this might be where a shift happens, but I guess we'll see. And also, obviously, Ronan has flipped and is now not dazed. Rocket and Valkyrie are the same way. So to get battle round 3 started, Valkyrie was the first activation, and we know from prior battle reports on this channel, you don't make Valkyrie angry because she is tough as nails, and especially when you feed her power for knocking her out. So she activated, she did Dragon Fang on Groot, did 4 damage, combined with the damage he did to himself from holding cube fragments, he is dazed, which then freed up poor old Rocket here for a basic strike. It did 4, it only needed to do 3, Rocket is gone. And then she spent 2 power generated from that to pick up the 2 cube fragments that Groot has dropped. So Nebula is the only hope of freeing up that Extremis console and the cube fragments. She'll obviously get rerolls against Valkyrie, and she only has 5 HP on her wounded side. But as per usual, if you let her build up a lot of her power at once, she is a monster. So Drax was next up, well, first up for the Guardians, but next up in terms of people activating. And he stayed where he was. He spent 3 power to throw Loki away from the objective into the car just for 1 damage. Then he did 2 basic strikes on Thor, who's within 2. Normally just 5 with the chance to bleed, but because Thor was the target of his vengeance, 3 extra attack dice were thrown in. First attempt didn't do too great, 2 damage plus blood, but the second attack threw in an extra 5, more than enough to daze Thor, who then dropped his cube fragment. Drax has picked that up. He's not within distance to claim the Extremis console, but he has stolen the cube fragment from Thor and removed his chance for a turn. So that does mean it's just Loki. It is just Loki to go now for the Asgardians. So for Loki's turn, he moved back into claiming range for the Extremis console, then spent the power to do illusions rather, his mystic attack, because Drax has bad mystic defense, rolled real badly. Also spent power for I am a god to add blanks to successes, still only got 2 successes. Drax, all said and done, did take 1 damage from it. Then, for lack of anything better, Loki used the Mind Stone to force Drax to moved him over there. 1, so he's not in claiming or using range of that Extremis console, but also so that he's in the back line, so Thor can hopefully deal with him next turn and get that cube fragment back. That's it for turn 3 for the Asgardians. So now, well, Quill is just going to stand there to claim that. Ronan doesn't have a target because Hel is stunned. He's just going to spend 2 power to pick up those cube fragments. So really it just comes down to what Nebula can do to Valkyrie. So those 2 things set in stone. Let's see what happens over here with this brawl. So Nebula is seeing off turn 3, and it just came down to whether or not she could kill Valkyrie with a shock sword assault or baton, whatever it's called, and then a basic strike. 3 damage first of all, and then it would have been 2, which would have been enough to kill her. So in order to make that not happen, Odin's Blessing was played. 3 power reduces the amount of damage taken to 1. So Valkyrie is hanging in there with 1 HP, and that does take us to the cleanup phase for battle round 3. So as far as the points go, Valkyrie is holding 2 cube fragments, Ronan is holding 2 cube fragments, and Drax is holding 1. So the Guardians have actually switched that around so they have the advantage. And in terms of Extremis consoles being held, this one held by Loki, this one held by Valkyrie, Quill has that one, Ronan had that one. Now, as we roll into turn 4 and the damage for the cube fragments start, Valkyrie unfortunately takes 2 damage and is dead. So she's just going to be off the table as we start turn 4. Her 2 cube fragments will be on the floor ready to get picked up by Groot. And as it stands, as we go into battle round 4, the Guardians are making the ground up. It's 13 playing 12. So this is getting into a tight game. So knowing that if they can muster 3 victory points, the Asgardians win, the first activation was Thor, and he went for points rather than brawling with anybody. He did a double medium move for his 2 actions. Then he spent 2 power to pick up the 2 cube fragments that Valkyrie dropped when she perished. Then he spent 3 for Strongest Avenger and threw Groot into Nebula, so Groot takes 1 automatic damage. Nebula whiffed her defense roll, took 3 damage, which was actually enough to daze her. So now Thor is currently generating 2 victory points, but he's being contested with Groot, so that's not giving up any victory points currently, but if they can muster one more victory point in some fashion, that'll be enough. Ronan the Accuser was the first one up for the Guardians of the Galaxy. He spent 4 power on Kree Justice, which is an 8 energy attack. It's explosive. If it does damage, it does stun and stagger. And he walloped Hela around the head and killed her because she only has 4 health on her wounded side. However, thanks to Nebula being dazed, she had 3 soul tokens, immediately used them to get healed. So he was like, oh no, you stand accused. So he spent another 4 power and did Kree Justice again and did another 4 damage. Hela is gone. So that does mean that Ronan very comfortably is generating 3 victory points because he is holding that console and has 2 shards. So that would put the Guardians 1 away from the points required as well. So this is very interesting. So some pass shenanigans happened there because Loki didn't want to activate yet, so used the pass. So Star-Lord went and was like, I'm just going to stay here because I want to hold the objective. Done. Back over to Loki, second pass got used, so it went to Groot. And Groot was sitting on quite a bit of power after being beaten up last turn, so he opened up with I Am Groot, which is an 8 physical attack, and whether or not it does damage, he gets to throw the target medium, so he threw Thor away from the objective and did quite well with damage, 3 damage, and then for his other action he just did a move slightly to avoid any Loki related shenanigans when Loki does activate, which reminds me, when Drax threw Loki, it should have cost 1 more power because he was within 4 of Loki, obviously. Too late now to go back, just total oversight. Loki hasn't been in a position for that power to matter much. It was the only time thus far that it has. So speaking of which, Loki has to activate now, and then Drax ends probably the game, I think. So for Loki's turn, he had to find a way to generate points, and he did. He did an I Am a God Illusions combo for 5 power in total on Drax, and it did 3 damage, which was enough to daze him. Drax has then obviously he's not getting an activation. He dropped the cube fragment. Loki has no power left to pick it up, so it's just sitting there. It is worth mentioning, if he hadn't used I Am a God, obviously he would have had enough power to pick that up, but 2 of the successes that led to that damage were blanks as a result of I Am a God, so it wouldn't have done that damage if he hadn't done that combination, so there was no other way. So that cube's just sitting there, and that does bring us to the end of the game. So this has come down to a photo finish at the end of the 4th battle round. Loki knocking that cube fragment out of Drax's hands made it closer. Thor ends the turn with 2 fragments of his own for 2 victory points. Ronan has 2 for 2 victory points, so they kind of balance each other out. Loki is holding that Extremist console as he has done for the whole game. Groot is holding this one. Star-Lord is holding this one. Ronan is holding this one. So even though both teams succeeded in getting to 16 or over, which is the winning condition, it does go to the Guardians because they actually technically have 17 victory points against the 16 for the Asgardians. So Quill's team has done it. Now it is worth pointing out, if Groot had not thrown Thor, and Thor was over there, that would have cancelled 1 of the points and it would have been a perfect draw. This was an exceptionally close game. Ronan is very scarily powerful if you let him do that best attack of his, that Kree Justice. Because even just the stats effects it does alone, but I feel like there wasn't enough room in this list obviously, but maybe even just dropping Nebula and bringing the power gem on him so he can do Kree Justices more often by generating more power. He's scary. And Drax when he attacks the person with vengeance on, he's also scary. Obviously he has to be attacked first before the vengeance applies, but yeah, he's good. I think he really, like both of them, Drax and Ronan, elevated the Guardians of the Galaxy team here. Nebula did her fair share as well. Her shock baton attacks definitely contributed, or basically it was just her that took Valkyrie out. Rocket accidentally being misplaced at the start of the match obviously was punished, and if it wasn't punished, I think this very comfortably would have went to the Guardians. The Asgardians were just spread too thin, and Hela got wrecked by Ronan. So anyway, that is going to do it for this battle report. I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching. Please do show your support as I mentioned at the top of the video. There will be more to come in the future. Next time we'll probably see the Black Order. Sans their affiliation bonus because Thanos isn't here yet, but the Black Order, hopefully, we'll see if Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf are ready. So look forward to that. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Ta-ta for now.